Mm, good.
Namaste and welcome.
Yeah. Namaste, Ashley. Good to see you and good to be able to talk to you.
Yes, there is a rhythm moving through your life, one that cannot be rushed, forced, or controlled. Welcome
Mm.
to Sacred Fertility Flow. I'm Ashley Holmes, holistic fertility coach and guide, and this is a space where you're invited to return to your body, your intuition, and your divine timing. Together, we explore what it means to become fertile in mind, body, and spirit so that you can shift from striving into flow. And I am very delighted and honored to be here with my wonderful guest today, Sankara. And this is my guru from India. And he has been a theoretical nuclear physicist in the
Mm.
beginning, but has 40 years of spirituality and growth. And so it is a privilege and an honor to be here with you today and to really deepen this conversation and to learn and explore, how you went from this career to a very different path, how you really went into this inner world of self-knowing, and what was that like for you? Because in those days, I suppose it was not so prevalent to take the
Mm.
path of unfamiliarity.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much for asking that question, Ashley. And first of all, thank you for making me your guest. I feel honored. And now, if I were to go into that question, I am afraid I'm going to take a few minutes to explain things clearly, but that may not have much to do with the deep work that you're doing, helping women to go through pregnancy and birthing in a very holistic way. So, do you want me to dwell on it? Because it's kind of going very deep into life. And
I think I think we can go deep into life because
mm,
that is where you're stemming from, and that is, you know, what I have learned from you has really touched and affected me, and that is also what I
okay.
bring to the women that I work with. And so, three things that, that I've learned from you today, I was reciting back to one of my clients because it stuck with me.
Yeah,
It's
thank
really
you.
a path of of relearning and unlearning and becoming conscious and
Mm,
aware of where we're at so that we can move forward in the direction we
yeah.
aspire to.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. You see, my divine architecture is such that I use a very weird term called divine architecture, and later I may use two more weird terms called divine patronage and divine conspiracy, which is what human life is all about. It's not, I'm not using some verbiage, but human life is about things coming very easily your way, which is divine patronage, and things becoming very hard for you, which is divine conspiracy. So both of them are there. Now, I started out my life as a seeker. I was interested in physics. I was introduced to the depths of physics by my philosopher friend and an older cousin of mine. And therefore, I always used to read books which are outside the syllabus and wanting to understand what is in the deep. Now, when I came up to doing my doctoral work at the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, then the joy of deep learning and the joy of immersion and the joy and the solitude to contemplate on the mysteries of nature was overshadowed by the rat race, by having to survive, and um, by questing for what the whole world is questing for, namely status and wealth and name and what other people think of you. Now, most people are very concerned about what other people think of them, and that ceased to hold any charm for me. And so I was in conflict at that time, and I began to observe myself. I began to observe the movement of the self in thought and feeling. And I went so deep. I did the observation only for 6 months. And I was initiated not very deeply, but in an inspiring way by my mother and by a philosopher friend. But then I think I went too deep, and I went so deep that I had to completely make a radical shift in my life. So I did not want to do bread and butter theoretical physics. I didn't want to do that. And in fact, when I was in Germany, I went and met Professor David Bohm, who had conversations with Krishnamurti. And after reading his book, The Wholeness and Implicate Order, and I asked him, can I work with you building the worldview of a physicist with the Krishnamurtian self-knowing as the foundation? Can I work with you on a research project like that? And then Professor Bohm told me that I don't have the funds for that. And I also had a heart attack last year. So my energies have dwindled. So I won't be able to work with you on that thing. So then either bread and butter theoretical physics or into the wilderness of self-knowing with not even your bread and butter assured. I chose the latter option because that was soulful. That was true to me. And I was unafraid of the so-called survival difficulties of life. I never bothered about them. And I was so foolish, I told myself, if the worst comes to the worst, I know driving. I can be a cab driver. So I chose the difficult path, which is self-knowing. And it took a long time to build this work. And what I'm teaching at the retreat, at the Amanaska Yoga retreat, is what I've learned over 53 years. It's a very long thing. And I think I'm making it much easier for seekers. And what I went through is nothing extraordinary. Every human being goes through the same thing, but I believe we do not respond adequately to the challenge of inadequacy, spiritual inadequacy, then intellectual inadequacy, and we lose our integrity favoring bread and butter. And I didn't want to do that. So that's how I went into Krishnamurti.
I love that. I think we are always called to follow our heart, and sometimes it's not the
Mm.
easy thing to do, it's the brave
No.
thing to do, but it is always, the most inner rewarding thing to do when you can
Yeah.
trust that intuition and that inner knowing of that is what you're called to do and be and how you're
Mm.
here to serve in the world. And so, do you think that this intellectual understanding alone could resolve human suffering?
Not at all. Not at all. So Krishnamurti is called intellectual understanding the gutter. The gutter. Okay. It's a stupid thing because either you understand it with your heart, which is with your atma, or you intellectualize it, which is stupid, which is what the intellectual people are doing, and you get nowhere. And your conflict is very much with you, and not an iota of transformation has happened. So you have to go the whole hog, and you have to give your all for the truth. Now, you can't say that I've got to survive, so I'll give 50% for the truth. It doesn't work that way. Then truth won't come home to you. So one has to marry the truth and one has to give one's all for the truth. Then I believe that you made a very deep and sincere beginning. And that's what life is all about. Life is not about surviving. That's too shallow a thing. And life is not playing the game of one-upmanship. Life is not about succeeding. All that is so absurd. And life is not about comparing yourself with very high social benchmarks and comparing yourself with the successful people and following in their footsteps. That's all so immature and so childish. And it's sad that so many people are still walking that path.
So my question for you is, in many
Hmm.
societies, there was an expectation, there's a
mm,
family expectation, there's a societal expectation to
mm,
bear children. And then a lot of people feel inadequate, they feel less than, and they feel like they're not as much of a woman or a wife or
mm,
a daughter sometimes because they have not been able to produce a child yet. And so, what
mm,
is your take on that? And what are your words of wisdom to help them see that that is not the definition of their worth and to
mm,
really help them to look inward and to navigate
mm.
that with and from a different perspective?
Oh, that's a marvelous question because all over the world, Ashley, um, women have to suffer much more than men because invariably man is the breadwinner. At least 100 years going back in time, man was the breadwinner. But after the women's liberation movement in the West, man is humbled himself to recognize that he stands shoulder to shoulder with women and that he cannot treat his wife like a doormat. And uh, that kind of an old paradigm has gone away, is completely gone away. Women are in a much better position, but they're not out of stress. But the social expectation, the familial expectation is very much there. Now, there is a British psychiatrist who's actually a philosopher of mental illnesses, is not so much a doctor of mental ill health as much as he's a philosopher of mental health. And his name is R.D. Lane, Dr. R.D. Lane. And he passed away in 1989. But, but he tried to create a revolution. And he said that very often families are responsible for mental illnesses in the family. Families are responsible, family
Wow.
values, family culture, and 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 family structure of the male superiority and all of that. And so his books are called, one book is called um, Sanity and Madness in the Family. Sanity and Madness in the Family. And then another work is called The Self and Others, the second work. And the third is The Divided Self. So one of his moot points is that very often um, he tried to come up with a hypothesis which is extremely deep and which is very truthful, that there is no such thing as madness because we drive people up to the precipice. And then because they don't have a sanctuary and they don't have a refuge, they just fall down the precipice. And the society does it. Society does the pushing. Society does the expectation. Society gives the injustice to human beings, and a whole lot of human beings are suffering, and women more than men. And but that's why I spoke in the Parliament of the World's Religions about the importance of freedom for women, and self-knowing can do a world of good because women should empower themselves through self-knowing, which means they become very strong in the soul. So they're not going to be cowed down by social injunctions and social values and social mandates, and they will dismiss the whole thing and they will stand on their own right because now spiritually they are Himalayan in stature. Their body may be that of a woman, but in terms of a soul, they are very, very strong. So, having come to that strength inwardly having come to that strength, then they can choose to do whatever they want to do in life. That's very important because all of us, and I watched my mother and my wife and my daughter and so many women go through so much in life. And I want women to be given a better place, equal parity with men. And I want women to get into self knowing for the greater good and for the greater fulfillment.
I couldn't
I
agree
want that
more
to happen.
because I think it is so important because
Mm,
we're all oftentimes looking externally at
mm,
everybody else and their expectations upon us. And so it's really that shift and that locus of
Mm.
control from external to internal, and really
Yeah.
owning that and being empowered wherever you
Um,
are on your journey and taking ownership of that. Because often we like to point fingers and look at everybody else, and we're not looking within. And so one of the reasons that I went to India is because
mm,
Amanaska Yoga speaks of awakening to sorrow and understanding sorrow and ultimately ending sorrow. And
mm,
so I was called to go and to look at and look
mm,
inward at the ending of the sorrow part. And
mm,
so if you want to explain a little bit more about what that looks like for people, because
mm,
we've all had sorrow, but has it awakened us? Have we understood us? And is it
mm.
possible for us to actually end it?
Yeah, these are great questions, and you have a very sharp mind and a deep heart. So you're asking these questions. And you see, society is so structured because society is structured on the superficial mind of humanity. Humanity has got a crusty, superficial mind, which is made up of sensory perceptions. And then underneath the superficial mind is the heart, which is very concealed, which is uh, deep in feeling, and which knows that there is a thing called ethics and there's a thing called truth, and that one has to rally around that. But um, but society does not even recognize that there is an inner woman and an inner man. Society only goes by the outer man. They look at your bodily form and they give importance to the bodily form, which means the form of the woman and the form of the man, they take precedence, and there is no chair given for the inner woman and the inner man. Now, the inner woman and the inner man is the most important because that is the transition point from terrestrial life to the divine life. And God is, the kingdom of God is within you, as the Master Jesus said. And one has to go within. But society won't allow you to do that because society insists that you must go on delivering on the superficial plane. You've got duties and responsibilities. You must go on delivering. One has to veto that. So Krishnamurti has said you can help society only when you break away from it. And that's what I did. You can help society. First of all, you have to help yourself because you're the most important person. You're the most important person. Not all the great people in the world, not even Krishnamurti, not even the Buddha. You are the most important person. And therefore, we have to see what that inner person actually wants. And that suffering, which is the way the mind works, must be understood first by observation. First is the observation, and then is the understanding, and the very understanding will end that suffering. But then you think this is going to happen in a trifling second or in a trifling week or a trifling month. No, no, it's a very deep thing. Why do people go to a monastery? People go to a monastery and stay there for 3 months, stay for 6 months, stay for 2 years. Why? To go very deep into the abyss of truth, into the depths of religion, and you've got to give time to it. And so, if one does that, I believe that one has initiated oneself through one's own initiative. Nobody will initiate you because the world is so superficial. Everybody is going to dangle carrots in front of you and show you the stick. Everybody is going to should do that because they all lost their minds, and you have to set yourself free. And you have to set yourself free by prioritizing the inner Ashley over the image of the outer Ashley, which society is celebrating and making much ado about.
Yes, very important.
Very important. I believe that you've done that. I believe that's why you're doing this work, and I'm very proud of you, Ashley, that your divine patronage was favoring you to do that, and you chose that as against bread and butter survival. Most people are running after bread and butter. It's a shame. It's a real shame.
it's fulfilling to the soul to know that you're doing what you're called to do, though, and to help people with their suffering. You help people with their suffering in one way, and I'm helping them in another way. And it's really
Absolutely.
helping them to awaken within themselves that, they're not helpless in the situation, and that
Yeah.
there are things that they can do to navigate this with a lot more ease and a lot less stress, because
Yeah.
often things up here are just going on repeat and people
Mm.
don't know how to get out of that loop. And one of the other things I wanted to
Yeah.
mention is that you've often called time the mischief maker. And what do you mean
Mm.
by that? Because for a lot of women, they are
Mm.
running by a biological clock. They feel like they're running out of time, and
Mm.
they're looking like that. They're looking at
Mm.
time as the
Mm.
factor of what is going to determine whether they become a mother or not.
Yeah. First of all, we've got to understand one thing, and that is women are genetically programmed uh, to yearn for motherhood. They're genetically programmed as part of the genetic structure of the species, and you see that throughout nature, both in the fauna and in the flora, there is the bifurcation of the sexes for for the furtherance of the species. The furtherance of the species is the intention of Mother Nature. And because it is the intention of Mother Nature, who is lofty, who is infinite, who is the Divine Mother, it has also come to the human beings, to womankind, and to the womankind. And all women yearn to be mothers. It's part of their psychic divine architecture. And one has to give ear to that. One has to give ear to that. And one has to be very patient. And it's not a thing which we can do in haste. And in the case of some women, pregnancy may be delayed. I know a German woman who was a friend of ours, and they came to India, husband and wife, and uh, and the lady became pregnant when she was 40. And now to become pregnant when one is 40 is not all that rare a thing in the West of our times. And but if you go back to the Middle Ages and you go back 200 years back, then women are supposed to become mothers by the time they are 21, 22, 23, 24. And then to think of late motherhood was an abhorrent thing because of the social injunctions and the social expectations. And especially when nobody understands a woman, nobody understands, not even the husband. And if you get a husband who understands you, I think the divine patronage is awesome for you. But that's the way society is structured. It is highly self-centered, it is highly mean, and it is highly short-sighted. It cannot see things as they really are, and it's always trying to hijack life in favor of oneself, which is a very obnoxious thing. And um, mm, I think women have to they have to understand that the calling is given by Mother Nature, is given by the Divine Mother, and they have to value it, they have to nurture it, they have to cherish it. And if pregnancy is delayed, does not matter, does not matter. They have to see how to overcome the obstacle which is there. The obstacle can even be biological, but they have to see how they can overcome that obstacle. They should not give up. But when we say they should not give up, they should not become foolhardy, they should not become hasty, but they should be persistent and exploring and looking at research. What are the options? You have Chinese medicine, you have Ayurveda, you have yoga from India, and then Patrick Steptoe and Robert Edward, they did the IVF, and the IVF was a glorious option. And I believe there are 12 million IVF babies in the world today. 12 million. 12 million.
Wow.
So research is always throwing up new possibilities and new options, and one has to pursue that. One has to pursue that patiently, patiently. But first, one has to put one's house in order, as Krishnamurti says, and the woman is more spiritual than man. That is my view, and I think it is also the truth. Women are more spiritual. Why? Because women bring new life on earth. They bring new life. They give life to new life, and therefore, to love is their essential nature. Because without having the capacity to love, how do you qualify to be a mother? So to be a mother means the capacity to love. So you're an embodiment of love. And therefore one has to understand that, and one has to see that once one comes to the still mind because of the adversity, because of suffering, one has to come to the still mind. And then I believe life can become beautiful only when one has come to the still mind. And then with the still mind, you have to dare to address the impossible question. Even if the medical world says your pregnancy is impossible, you must veto it. You must
I
veto it.
I wholeheartedly agree, but I think so many people are conditioned to think that what comes from a medical professional, is the end all and the be all, and that then they
Mhm.
limit themselves and their options and what they think is possible for them because
Yeah.
of numbers that are given, perhaps because of a diagnosis that is given, perhaps things
Yeah.
that they have gone through in the past, and then
Yeah.
it really narrows the possibility of what they can actually achieve because they're taking that external information and embodying it
Mm.
as gold and as the absolute truth and the absolute word. And so for me, I know I had my own experience of discovering that,
Mm.
unexplained infertility with no answers didn't mean that I could not conceive naturally. And so, I
Mm.
discovered my own truth and what was actually possible for me. And that's why I believe this work is so important, is that you can and do have the power to change your inner world, but it starts with you.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's you see, you are in a good position to guide women because you have an institution for doing clinical research and addressing this problem, and women come to you with this problem. So you can do great work, and you can also get onto the social stage, and you speak about the predicament of women and how it's unfair that women should suffer so much, and you have to postulate a hypothesis that is very important for men to check what is their attitude towards women. Are they sensitive to women, to the woman's motherhood? Are they sensitive to the difference between what it takes to be a man and what it takes to be a woman? These are all social questions which have to be asked. They're inconvenient. The men who want to always dominate, they're not going to like these questions, but you have to nevertheless ask them. And I have an impossible question to pose to you, but I'll reserve it later. But now let's get on with the conversation.
I think one of the biggest takeaways I came away from India with, and this is something I was speaking to one of my clients about today, was that you talk about the self being constantly seeking permanency, security, and certainty, and how this really, when we're seeking those things, is creating a lot of inner suffering for ourselves because we want answers, we want to feel secure, we want to know that all this effort and energy is
Mm.
going to bear a child. And so there is so much discomfort to sit with
Mm.
because there is no certainty and there is no permanent answer. And so I would love for you to dive deeper into that because I think this is where a lot of people get stuck and they get caught and they don't see any way or any light to move forward with.
Yeah, you've actually gone very deeply into the whole thing, probably because there was a crisis in your life, and then you took that crisis to heart, and then you dealt with it very intelligently and probably skillfully also. And therefore, you were able to surmount the obstacle. Now, first of all, human beings have to accept that suffering is the default setting in the mind, the way the mind works. The mind works in a very dualistic way with separation and with loneliness as the foundation. Separation, that is, you see somebody, and for example, I'm looking at Ashley Holmes, and I get the feeling, oh, Ashley, oh, I'm not Ashley, and she's not me. So that's how the mind works. The mind is shallow, and the mind is superficial. It cannot glean truth. It can only see the surface of things. And so, because it's such a superficial instrument, that superficial instrument, which which is the main power in society, the superficial instrument, that creates suffering inevitably. Now, the question for the whole of humanity is, do we want to understand that suffering and end it and then go to the more marvelous and magnificent life for which we are destined? Or do we continuously run away from that suffering in a piecemeal fashion? Piecemeal fashion, because there are so many lovely escapes available. I can run away to all those escapes. I can take a holiday, and I can take to alcohol. I can take some drugs. I can do humanizing, and I can do hundreds of other things so that I never face the inner chaos that is going on within myself. So, because those escapes are available for man, man never accepts the challenge that there is this suffering. But religions have the responsibility, religions, that we must take the suffering seriously. And this suffering is a portal to the divine. And the divine is not some bearded old man sitting on a lofty throne in cloudy heaven. No, no, that's just a mental picture. But he's the stillness within, the absolute stillness, the intelligence issuing from the stillness, the love coming out like vapors from the stillness. That's what the divine is. And provisionally, one may believe that that is the home of the divine and that is the face of the divine provisionally, but one has to make a discovery of it also. Otherwise, one is not an authentic person, one is not a deeply original person. And to live a life which is not original, which is not authentic, is not worth it. Nobody can live like that. So you have to lead people through small conversations, through big conversations, through counseling, in the tea shop, in the coffee shop, wherever you get a chance to lead people away from shallow waters. You've got to do that. I do it all the time. I'm some kind of a missionary. I never give up.
No, it's very true. There is always an opportunity to,
Yeah,
meet people where they're at and to see that and know that, we are all part of universal consciousness and that you're no different than I and I'm no different than you. And so,
yeah.
it really allows you to look inward and to treat everybody with the same kindness and respect that you desire.
Absolutely, absolutely. One has to discover that, not follow it like a commandment of Moses, or like one of the biblical commandments. You can also follow it blindly, and the self is the follower, because the self is tries to be obedient, but it cannot be because fundamentally it's sovereign. So it has too much power within itself. So it tries to be obedient, tries to follow, but it won't work. So understanding is the only thing that will work. So we have got to stress on understanding, because that understanding will deliver us, and nothing else will deliver us. Not a belief system, not faith, not belief, not faith, not hope. No hope, no faith, no belief, but
And
understanding. Um,
I would also love to dive deeper into we had a conversation in India about the fragmented mind and how that really is affecting people. And I think for women struggling with infertility, they are pulled in
mm,
so many directions. Therefore, their
mm,
mind is so much more fragmented because
mm,
they're juggling appointments and protocols and what they should be eating, how they should be exercising, getting enough sleep, and the list goes on and on and on. And therefore, it just feels more and more and more. And they are far away from a still mind. So, how
Yeah.
can they navigate that and become more conscious and aware of all the going on up here is really taking them away from themselves and to come back to themselves and to implement practices in order to do that.
Yeah. Actually, you're talking about women, but I think the fragmentation of consciousness is universal. It starts in school, in education, where children are not given enough space to be themselves. And you dump a whole lot of mandates on them, saying that they've got to complete this syllabus, they've got to complete that syllabus. Now, the child likes to go out into the garden, look at the trees, and watch the butterflies and be in that wonderment. That's what it means to be a child in innocence. But the whole process of education, I think, fundamentally destroys innocence. Now, innocence is part of that still mind. Children have it, part of that
Mhm.
stillness, and they're capable of great affection. That's why even sensitive adults love to be with children because they're so loving, they're so affectionate, and it's such a beautiful thing to be with loving people, even though they are small. They are small in stature. Now, it begins in school, the fragmentation, that things are imposed on you. So you begin the mental struggle. You're not allowed to be what you are. So you begin the struggle. Now, the moment there is struggle, there is a conflict between what is and what should be. Now, what is I'm lazy. I find the mathematics hard. I can't solve these problems. But the teacher comes with a stick and gives me a whack. And the teacher says, no, you've got to finish the homework by tomorrow, 12 o'clock. So I begin my struggle. I begin my conflict and I begin to build up my self image. Oh, I'm a useless boy. I'm not gifted like the other children. So the thing is set a going. The conflict is set a going. Right in school, where because of the competitive game, very ugly, very competitive, and based on comparison and based on a total unconsciousness of the self and the attention that the self needs, total unconsciousness about the importance of the inner child, the inner human being. So we are constantly running after ideals and running after respectability and running after the games, the goals that society has given us. Like you've got to earn more and you've got to achieve more and you've got to prove yourself as a great individual and you've got to shine as an individual. Don't worry about your family. You've got to shine as an individual. So that begins the struggle and that mandates the struggle and that mandates and ensures that fragmentation will never end. So where is the hope? You're doomed. You're doomed in fragmentation. And the only reason why people are not complaining about this, complaining about fragmentation and the conflict and sorrow is there are 100 uh, silly happiness shops around the corner everywhere where you
Yes,
can turn to, where you can turn to for piecemeal happiness. And that's all
yes,
you want. You want piecemeal happiness. You want to have just one drink. You want to have one friend with whom you can spend 1 hour over coffee and be free of the nuisance of the self during the conversation. And so you're ever in search of those petty little happinesses. And why? Because you're fragmented. And so you won't ever do any creative work because to be creative means to work to work with a still mind and to be very serious. And you don't get into shallow waters. The people who are doing serious work, they never get into shallow waters. And therefore, something is wrong with our society. Our society is profoundly sick. And therefore, as Krishnamurti says, you can help society only by breaking away from it. Breaking away how? By not conforming to the norms and being your authentic self and being your original self. And that calls for courage. Because the moment you do that, people will not associate with you. People will boycott you. People will say, Don't talk to that person. They told me at the Tata Institute that if you talk to Shankar, then you lose your job.
Wow.
Yeah, you lose your job because he'll ask you disturbing questions. And so people will avoid you like plague. So it's a very complex thing. And that's why, to some extent, there should be social and familial encouragement for man to embark on the adventure on which you embarked. You embarked on that adventure, yes. And everyone has to embark on that adventure. Adventure of the soul, adventure of the spirit. Without that, life is not worth it.
Absolutely. I think you also brought up a term that I want to dive into further because this is really at the root of suffering, and that is what is and what should be. And so, for
Mm.
anyone who is struggling to conceive, they are fixated on what should be. I should be
Yeah,
pregnant by now. Why isn't this
yeah,
happening? What is wrong
yeah.
with me? Why can't I fix this? And
Mm,
they are the what should be is running their life, and there's no acceptance. There is only resistance for what is, and it is
mm,
inhibiting them from
mm.
creating the child that they desire.
Yeah. You see, Ashley, human beings have got two faculties. Two faculties. One is um, ethereal faculty, not even cognizable by the mind. An ethereal faculty. And that ethereal faculty is not in the foreground, it is in the background behind the scenes. Hmm? And we go back and sleep in the hammock of that ethereal faculty every time we go to bed at night. That's where we
Mhm.
go to. Okay. And that is stillness. Now that stillness is the home of intelligence. That stillness is the home of awareness. That stillness is the home of any intention which you want to make. Now, when a woman has this kind of a problem that I'm not able to conceive, there is a delay already, there has been a delay of 2 years, then one can approach that problem in two ways. One can either pursue the what should be, that you run after pregnancy in thought and feeling, and in conflict. Because why conflict? Because what is you're not able to conceive. That is the what is. And
Mhm.
therefore you are conflicted. And with that conflicted mind, you run behind what should be, and you do a whole lot of things in thought and feeling, including yoga and chakra meditation and mantra chanting and all of that in thought and feeling, um, hoping to secure that state of pregnancy and that state of conception. Now, that is one way to approach the problem, not only of conception and a pregnancy, but any human problem.
Mhm.
That is one way, through thought. Thought is your primary tool. Thought and is your primary tool, thought and feeling. Now, another way um, is the approach of Krishnamurti, where you realize that you happen to have a woman's body, and you've got a full, deep understanding that the yearning for motherhood is not the yearning of you as an individual. It is a cosmic yearning. It is what the Divine Mother has given to you. Because without that yearning, creation will not go forward. You have gone so far beyond your individuality, understanding that the yearning which you have is something given to you by the divine. But then the body seems to have some problem. So conception is not happening. So what do you do? So the second approach. So you constantly live with the intention that this must happen to you. Conception must happen to you. Pregnancy must happen to you. Motherhood must happen to you as a blessing. You're constantly with that. You never budge from that. Don't budge from that. And then add to that a little bit of salt and pepper, which is that the baby must be a bonny baby. The baby must be very intelligent. The baby should not be a self centered human being. The baby should be a source of joy for the family and for the world. So salt and pepper, add all that. Okay. But then just be with the awareness that awareness is the highest power, way beyond thought and feeling. Thought and feeling are small things, and awareness is the mighty power. But awareness is always anonymous, so it will not shout, it will not make noise. No, it will
Mm-hmm.
not make noise. It will be anonymous. It will be silent. It will have the gravity and the gravity and the maturity of being silent. But then you're working. It's not that you're going to sleep. No, you're not going to sleep, but you're working. And you're reading books. You're reading books, and you're staying. And the intention is the most important thing. The intention is the seed. The intention. And the intention has to be not just in the mind, it has to be in the awareness, the intention. And then you can work like that. And I think that pregnant women must listen to a lot of beautiful music. They must the the foundation for all mothers is one has to awaken to sorrow, one has to observe sorrow, and one must wish that the child must never know sorrow. The baby you're going to give birth to, that must never know sorrow in life. Okay, that should be your intention. And
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a large number of people having a certain intention for their baby, and then that intention comes true. But then, here is the sad part of the thing. What they asked for from the divine is not any great spiritual aura or any spiritual excellence. They asked for wealth, and they asked for good looks, and they asked for things like that. And that happened. Now I'm saying, ask for the great things. Let your child never know what suffering is. Let your child be a source of joy to the world. And it is your greatest gift a mother can give to the whole of humanity. You're not just giving to your family, you're giving to the whole of humanity. A noble human being. So let that be
So
nurtured.
beautiful.
Let that
Mm-hmm.
be nurtured. And if you want to sing and add a floral wreath to it, do that. But give more importance to intention and give more importance to awareness, and then work with that. And it's a pleasure for any intelligent person to work with an unsolved problem by the minute, by the hour, by the week, by the month. You got maintain a diary, write down your reflections, and I think it should be possible. It'll herald and it'll usher a new era of problem solving for pregnant women. Working with awareness, working with awareness. That does not mean that you don't do the asana, the pranayama, the Ayurvedic healing. Does not mean that you don't do those things. You do all those things, but then you do something much more foundational, where intention and awareness are concerned, and you be in solitude. You're in solitude, and you listen to great music, and you read great books. And I've seen time and again that mothers in the making, pregnant women who have read the scriptures during their pregnancy, they invariably give birth to great children. As an astrologer, I know this. I've got their charts.
Right.
Yeah,
Of course.
yeah. And once I was looking at the chart of a very difficult life, and the mother was sitting in front of me. I said, "You must have been in hell when you were pregnant." That's the question I put to her. You must have been in hell. And she gave me a rejoinder. She said, "Yes, it was a hell. I had an ongoing bitter quarrel with my husband for months on end. I was very, very unhappy. And the child which was born, it happened to be a girl child. That child has a very difficult fate. Who architectured it? The mother architectured it in unconsciousness. So there is
Yes.
conscious pregnancy, there is unconscious pregnancy, there is
Mm-hmm.
conscious motherhood, there is unconscious motherhood. You're talking about all those things, and you're helping women to become conscious. That's a great thing.
It's beautiful to know that your level of consciousness is going to affect your baby and how they come into the world, and it's going to affect the whole family. And to see that ripple effect, I wasn't conscious when I had my twins, and
Mm,
I was conscious when I had and conceived naturally my youngest child. And to see the difference and to know internally the difference, and then to
mm,
not have any shame, guilt, or blame about it because
mm,
that was my path and I was exactly
mm,
where I needed to be. And so it's just that inner knowing and that trust, because so many people lose faith and they lose trust in themselves when it's not
mm.
happening on their timeline.
Correct. Correct. You got to give them hope. There, you got to give them hope. There, Krishnamurti's uh, denial of hope won't work. That's a wrong medicine for them. There, you got to give hope. There, you got to give succor. There, you got to do a lot of hand holding. There, you got to give a lot of warm friendship, and because that's a very momentous time. You see, a lady is pregnant and she's going to become mother and she's going to bring new life. Now the question is, uh, um, the mother's not aware that she is a creator, and her deeply felt thoughts and feelings are going to architecture the destiny of her baby. She's not aware of that, and the images I shared with you, they are um, exemplifying just that point, that
Mm-hmm.
as the mother um, contemplates deeply, as the mother thinks, as the mother feels, now all of that is going into the divine architecture of the baby to be, and
Mm-hmm.
therefore the mother has a huge responsibility. And you probably doing the great work that you're doing, you can have some classes where you talk about all these things and you empower them, um, not make them more egoistic, of course, but empower them. Yeah, because sometimes that also can happen very imperceptibly, but empower their souls so that they feel jolly good about their mission. They feel jolly good. And I think they need that, women need that encouragement.
Definitely. It can definitely be a
Mm.
lonely and isolating process. And when you don't have self-knowing within you, then it's hard to feel resourced enough and have the
Mm.
capacity sometimes to want to continue, or to feel like you are strong enough and resilient enough to be able to navigate this.
Yeah, yeah. You begun a work which is probably uh, 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times greater than what you envisioned. You begun a work not knowing fully the repercussions. It can usher in a major shift um, for the for all women, and you pioneered that. And you did not accept the verdict of modern medicine. You did not accept even the verdict of uh, IVF. Can I say that?
Yeah, I never had to do IVF, but I also don't think that I walked away not wanting to go back to a clinic, not wanting to return because I did not feel like myself when I was there, and I did have to take fertility drugs. And so for me, my state of well-being, even though I wasn't at the time doing yoga or meditations or any of those things, I just had an
Mm,
inner knowing that for me, that was not a road I was going to go down again. I was grateful that I was able to have twins, but I was not going
mm,
to put myself through that again, emotionally or mentally, because I didn't feel like myself and I didn't like that feeling. And so I think it's important to listen to your intuition and to trust your intuition and to follow that, because everything you're seeking is inside of you and you just need
yeah.
to sort of awaken to it. And
Mm,
you probably will have a guide or
mm,
two along the way. And I've been very blessed that when I was ready, the teachers arrived, I met
mm,
Medisai, I met you, and so
mm.
I've been very blessed to have this divine guidance on my path. And so I'm honored to share that and to help other women.
Ashley, I think many women may not be as fortunate as you are. okay, to have that knowingness that the power is within you and not to be brainwashed by a negative verdict from modern medicine, a negative verdict from modern medicine, and to honor the feeling that I don't want to dump my body with so many chemical medicines, to honor that feeling and to cut a path which is not cut in society, namely alternative medicine and alternative therapies, alternative remedies. And I think that's pioneering work. And you probably can go much deeper into that. And I want to just say one thing, that Krishnamurti talks about the impossible question,
Mm-hmm.
and he talks about the impossible question concerning consciousness, whether consciousness can empty itself. Hmm? Not the self trying to empty the consciousness, but consciousness emptying itself. Now, long years ago, I read a most extraordinary book which I recommend to you. It is, the author is Arnold Ehret. Arnold Ehret, Ehret. Now, the book is called Mucusless Diet and Healing System. Mucusless Diet and Healing System. And there he gives the example of Abraham and Sarah from the Bible. And Sarah became pregnant when she was 90.
90.
90, yeah. And
Wow.
then, and now here is the impossible question for you. And it's actually not my question. I've joined Krishnamurti and Arnold Ehret, and I'm transmitting their wisdom to you. So Krishnamurti gave the impossible question, and Arnold Ehret made the proposition that women need not have the menstrual cycles and the mess of the periods month after month after month till their 50th year or something. They need not go through that. And he's suggesting that it's possible for the whole body to undergo a paradigm shift whereby women are fertile, they maintain their fertility, they will be childbearing, but their monthly periods do not happen. Do not happen. And you can look at that work, Mucusless Diet and the Healing System of Dr. Arnold Ehret. And there he's conceiving of that possibility. And because you're doing similar kind of work in fertility, and this is the possibility stretched to the extreme, so that it becomes the impossible, So that's something which people have thought about, and that's something a pioneering person like you are a pioneer in the field, and a pioneering person like you must know of the work of Arnold Ehret and the impossible question of Krishnamurti. The Krishnamurti says that when you ask an impossible question, then a lot of people will say that you've gone mad. A lot of people will say that you're a fool. They'll say all these things. But you know that you have a hunch that what you're sensing is the truth, similar to
Mm-hmm.
the hunch you had
Yes.
in walking away from a negative verdict of modern medical research. So that opens a great universe for you.
Well, thank you for that fascinating and very
Mm.
deep question. As we nearly close our time here together, that definitely is food for thought. And I absolutely believe that anything is possible and that our only limit is our mind. And so, how to have no mind, which is what Amanaska Yoga is based upon. And maybe you just want
Yeah.
to briefly share that because I think it's so powerful for people
Mm.
to understand and be able to explore and embody that.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for going so far, Ashley. You couldn't go further than that. That's the terminal limit. Yeah, thank you for asking these marvelous questions. Now you see, we are all very conditioned people. We are conditioned by our education. We are conditioned by what our parents told us, and worst of all, we are victims and we are conditioned by the television and the news media. And a lot of the things which the news media and the television, they told us, it's all lies. It's not the truth. It's all lies. And but we have little chance of vetoing that, of throwing it out, because we have not had an exposure to the best and the most marvelous things in life. We didn't have an exposure. None of us had that exposure. Therefore, we are very easily victimized by the television, by the media, by the newspapers, and by what we hear and what we imbibed in the school education and college education, and so on. But a man has got this very peculiar silent faculty called awareness. Now, as I said, it is anonymous. It doesn't make noise. And the mind is noisy. The mind is self-aggrandizing. The mind is always blowing its own trumpet. The self is always blowing its own trumpet and always wants recognition, always wants praise. But then underlying all of this cacophony is a faculty which is hard to discover, because it never announces itself. It never calls attention to itself. Then what is its name and form? It has no name and form. It is just silence. And because it is silence and it is nothing, in the words of the Buddha, it is nothing. So 8 billion people can miss discovering that, because it is nothing. And therefore we have to, because you're doing institutional work and you're dealing with the young women, I think you will do a great service to humanity if you teach all the women who come to you that they have this power within themselves, and which is the mightiest power in the world. But it is a anonymous power. It is not an arrogant power. It is not a
Yes.
power which wants to conquer dominions and which wants to establish an empire. It's not that kind of a thing. It's tremendously humble in its disposition. And that power is there for the asking. If you want help from that power, another name for that in the Christian religion is the Father in heaven.
Mhm.
The name is the Father in heaven. And its face is silence. Its face is anonymity. And its face is stillness. And that power is in all people, but it's a great tragedy for the human family that we never go to that. We never go to that source in humility and asking for help. We are always in the hall shouting as loudly as possible in thought and feeling.
Yes, often they are running the show, but
Yeah.
it's our duty to have that awareness and to find that inner stillness and to find that silent mind, because it's there. We all have it. We can all
Yeah,
access it.
we all have it. Uh, our
Mhm.
bodies will look different. Our bodies will look different. You will call some body a woman's body, some other body you'll call a man's body, somebody else you'll say child, somebody else you'll say a grandfather, and so on. But the stillness is the same in everybody.
Mhm.
And that
I love
stillness
that.
is infinite, which cannot be even be grasped by thought. And and please make people discover that, as you have discovered. You have discovered it. You're very fortunate. You're tremendously fortunate. And don't ever walk away from that discovery.
No, I never will. I
Yeah,
was meant to discover it.
but you know something. You know something. Along with that stillness, God gave us also a dirty mind, and the dirty
Mm,
mind will tell us that, please follow me. I will show you greater things.
hmm. Tis true.
And it's true,
It
right?
was like when I finished the Amanaska Yoga course, I
Mm.
had tears of my eyes of joy of when the last video finished, and then I had the thought, oh, I thought I would be this so much more enlightened being at the end of this, and I caught myself. immediately. And I said, that was the whole point.
Oh my God.
I am so much more enlightened than when I began, but I'm not there yet.
No, but you caught the thief, and that's I will garland you for that, for catching the thief. You caught the thief. And that thief, time is the mischief maker. Now I come back to your question. You posed a
Mhm.
question, time is the mischief maker. Now, time makes the mind work. It's because of time that the mind is working in an absurd way. And it's in a time wrap machine, the whole mind. And the stillness alone is away from time. There is no time. And which is why it is holy, which is why it is sacred. But the mind is caught up in time. And because it is caught up in time, it's got its ugly twists and turns. And then the thief spoke those words. Oh, that's all. I thought something great will happen. Oh my God. And you are fortunate to catch the thief.
Oh,
And
I'm
that is
delighted
so
I got to.
subtle. That
I
is
never
how
did
subtle
tell
it
you,
is.
so I'm delighted I had the opportunity to tell you that and to share that with all the listeners because
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that it was a very human moment for me, and it was a very pivotal moment that I will always remember. Of yes,
Mm,
you needed to remember that.
mm.
You needed to catch that thief, and you needed to stop getting caught with all your thoughts and your ego.
True. True.
Well, from the bottom of my heart, I am so
Yeah.
blessed to have shared this time with you, Sankara. Please do reach out. All of his information will be in the show notes. And
Yeah.
I have loved this conversation. You really do mean the world to me, and the light in me honors the light in you. Namaste.
No, namaste, Ashley. You have gone the whole hog. I am full of appreciation and adore you for the great work that you're doing and adore you for digesting Amanaska Yoga. Hmm?
Oh,
Uh,
thank you so
mm,
much.
yeah, thank you so much. Namaste. Thank you for making me your guest. Namaste.
Thank you.
Namaste.